Today on Blue Values TV, we'll interview a candidate for the California State Legislature in Assembly District 6. Stay tuned. Welcome to Blue Values TV. Blue Values TV is a production of the Blue Values Coalition. The Blue Values Coalition is dedicated to educating, informing, and engaging our neighbors in the governance of our communities. Look for us online at bluevaluescoalition.org. Our guest today is Mr. Brian Caples, a candidate for the California State Legislature in Assembly District 6. Thank you for being with us today, Mr. Caples.
Thank you for having me, Jack.
It's great to have you here. We want to talk a little bit about the issues and why you're running. Let's start with why are you running for this seat and what are the goals? What do you hope to accomplish?
Yeah, Jack, there are a great many number of reasons why I'm running. I think to sort of sum it up in a nutshell for our viewers here tonight, the primary reason why I'm running is because I want a government that is not for sale. I want to be somebody who takes a stand for our people here in Assembly District 6 and not just support the interests of a select few.
Mm-hmm. So you feel that there's a lot of influence of money in politics today, and that's one of your peeves?
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. When I was first choosing to take on this challenge of running for office, much of my life prior to that was spent sort of as an observer on the outside, watching politics, watching the news, following up on the different propositions that were coming through, and a lot of times being upset and being angry. And with the number of issues that we're currently facing, the issue of money in politics seems to transcend all of those things. It seems to have an impact on all of our problems. And until we can begin to address the root problem, we're not going to be able to fix situations like with our water, or situations with our food supply, or issues with our environment, or any number of issues that we're facing currently.
Well, let's start out. Tell us a little bit about your background. What is it that you've done that qualifies you to make a difference and to achieve these goals in the legislature?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jack. What qualifies me to run for office? And I think the takeaway from that is my commitment. What my commitment is to the people, and what my commitment is to our voters. I've made a pledge to refuse any special interest money. And so far, we have only accepted contributions from small donors. So when I'm elected, I won't owe any favors to anybody but the voters who elect me.
But what about your own background? What have you done in your life up to this point?
Yeah, I come from actually a background of technology. I worked for over 15 years in the computer industry in Silicon Valley. I started off working in the electricity industry, scheduling power for the California ISO, which actually gives me a very in-depth understanding of our electricity market. And right now in California, we have an interesting situation going on with deregulation and the number of choices that we have here for our energy providers. Other states do things differently, and my experience in the electricity industry specifically could help benefit a lot of people here in Assembly District 6 and really throughout the state.
Okay. Well, we've got a few real tough problems in California to talk about and stuff. Let's talk about water first. That's one of the severe ones. We're in the midst of a really serious drought in California.
Yes.
What would you like to see California do to really ease the burden of the drought and ease the impact it has on not only residents, but we also have agriculture and business that rely on water in California? What's the big picture? What kind of a vision would you have for water in California?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Jack. Water is really and should be a top priority for our legislature this year, addressing the concerns of what is obviously a survival need. And the lack of water also contributes to many other situations as far as food shortages go. You also mentioned a lot of our energy, hydroelectric energy, comes from water, the flow of water. So, having a shortage of water currently really affects us in many, many ways. So, currently, I believe that our legislature isn't addressing the real roots of the problem. Instead, and what's happening is they're not acknowledging that our usage, the public usage, is actually the smallest amount of usage out of all the sectors. So we, as the public, for our drinking water, we use, on average, less than 10% of the water that moves through the California water system. So even if we were to actually completely remove all of our usage, if we were to conserve 100%, it really wouldn't amount to a big drop in the bucket of California water.
So if residents consume, say, 10% of the water and we conserve 20%, that's a much smaller impact than if agriculture, which is a big usage of water, if they save 10% or 20%, that's a huge impact.
That's absolutely right, Jack. And when I am elected to the State Assembly, I would like to work and start a conversation with the other legislators about how we can earmark public water, specifically for public's usage. I want to ensure that we, the people, do not have shortages of water. I want to ensure that there's no need for us to increase water rates by 30% or impose $500 fines on people. There's plenty of water for us, the people. The question is, where is all the water going? And if only 10% is going to us, well, then the other 90% has to be going somewhere else.
Right. And some of the major users of water in California is agriculture,
yes,
which is big ag in many cases.
Yeah.
Now, if we take a look at the history of water in California, the population of California has increased quite a bit over the last 20, 30 years. The amount of usage by agriculture hasn't necessarily increased. In fact, it's probably decreased a little bit. So there is more demand for the same amount of water or less water in the drought year because of the rising population. Is this going to be something that continues and the public consumer usage is going to need to bite into the water share of agriculture? And then what would be the future of agriculture, which is one of the larger businesses in the state of California?
Yeah, California agriculture does make up a portion of our GDP. It does, or the amount of revenue that we take in here and provide for the state of California. And I am absolutely someone who believes in our farmers, and I support our farmers. And I think when a lot of people think about farms, they think about a family farm that's been there for generations and generations, a 500-acre farm or something like that. But the real state of farming now in California is not the little farmer. It's not the small farm. It's not the family-owned farm. It's a 100,000-acre farm. It's a 50,000-acre farm, which is a major, much different scenario than they try to portray on the pictures of the farmers who are being hurt by the drought. Well, the real users in California, people in Kern County, Wesson's Water District, the ones that are literally using flood irrigation to farm in land that has historically never been able to support crops. Doing so has caused runoff of the pesticides, the fertilizers that they use to grow the crops, contaminating our groundwater supplies. So there's lots of impacts that we see as a result of not managing our resources effectively.
Right.
And that's really a stance that I approach. I want to make sure that we balance the needs of agriculture with the needs of the public. The public's consumption is just as important and just as valid as the needs of big agriculture, or farmers, or golf courses, or water parks, or any of these other places that use, big amounts of water.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I become elected, I plan to introduce legislation to address that concern.
Mm-hmm. What about some of the proposals that are out there right now? So we have a water bond on our ballots in November in a few weeks. Prop 1 is a $7 billion bond that would build some new water storage and do other projects as well. What's your feelings about Prop 1?
I have, for the most part, I'm opposed to Prop 1. I believe that the public really has no need for additional storage, given that we only use 10% of the water that we can store here in California. Our needs are very well satisfied, and having us, the public, pay to have additional storage, doesn't really fit with the concept of those who benefit the most should pay the most. So right now, what Prop 1, the water bond, is a way to get the people to pay for more storage that we don't really need. And they're using the drought as a way to promote an agenda to push more money to the special interest groups. Water is big business.
Mm-hmm.
You might have heard the saying before that said that whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting. And that's the truth of the state of what's happening in California right now. Is there is a lot of fights over who's going to get the water and when they're going to get it and where they're going to get it and
who's going to pay for it.
And who's going to pay for it, absolutely. Right. And so Prop 1, unfortunately, while I think it's well-intentioned, I don't think it's really going to do enough to address the issues of why we have a water shortage in California. I don't think it's going to do enough to address the needs of the people in California. And it's also going to take money away from our schools. That money...
How would you say that? How would Prop 1 take money away from our schools?
Some of the funds that are earmarked are planned to be taken directly out of the general fund.
Okay. My understanding is that it's a bond measure,
right,
which is borrowing $7 billion of money and to be paid back out of the general fund in the future.
To be paid back from the general fund.
And so that's where you see it being
right,
taken
exactly.
away.
That especially the interest payments,
Mm-hmm.
that money is money that's going to be taken directly away from funds that normally go to our schools.
I see what you mean. Okay.
And it's not a small amount of change we're talking about here. We're not talking about a couple dollars. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars over a period of time.
Great. What about the Twin Tunnels proposal out of the Bay Delta Conservation Plan?
Yeah, the Bay Delta Tunnels Plan.
Yeah,
Bay Delta Tunnels Plan, though it is named the Bay Delta Conservation Plan. I think we've sort of changed the conversation about what the BDCP really is, and it's really just a tunnels plan. The conservation measures, none of those are set in stone. In fact, they still have to go to a ballot measure to be voted on by the people in order to pass any of the conservation measures. So I tend to refer to it as the Bay Delta Tunnels Plan, and
Sounds like you're not really in favor of that.
Yeah, I'm really not a big fan.
That's a good guess. Huh?
I'm really not a big fan, and I see the impacts on the community, and I see the impacts on the Delta, and I see the tunnels only contributing and causing more problems than they could potentially solve. The current build of the tunnels plan could literally suck all the water out of the Delta in a matter of hours. If they were to turn those pumps on at full blast, 15,000 cubic feet per second, they could literally take all of the water out of the Delta and send it. Someone flicked the wrong switch, for example. Mistakes happen, accidents happen, and having an opportunity for something like that to take place, or opening up a door for legal conflicts and legal battles over when they're going to take the water and when they're not going to take the water. I believe in the interest of the people, the Bay Delta Tunnel Plan is really just a way to support the special interest donors in Metropolitan Water. They've put a tremendous effort and energy and money into developing this plan. They've funded a lot of our candidates here currently running for office who support those initiatives and those ideas, and unfortunately, it's not going to help the people. And so I would hope that you would all oppose the BDCP as well as Prop 1.
As well as Prop 1. And then to meet the future needs of additional water, what I hear you saying is that you'd like to see the burden of the cost of providing extra water really borne by agriculture and business as the recipients of that.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Okay.
And I think it's not really a foreign concept, Jack. In fact,
that's the guiding principle.
It's sort of the guiding principle that in the past we've adhered to, and I commend the governor and the Democratic Party for creating an opportunity to allow the voters to fund some of these projects. I think, if I was a business person, I would want someone to fund my projects for me if possible. But unfortunately, for the voters to pay that, it doesn't make sense for us when we have jobs we can be creating, we have schools we could be opening, or we have all these other more bigger issues that are facing us.
What do you think of efforts to increase the amount of water that we actually have? Things such as desalination plants and other means that increase our water supply. Would you be willing to invest in those kinds of things?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm completely in favor of concepts of creating abundance in the resources that we, the people, need the most. Water is necessary for life. Water is, there's no really any other thing on this planet that we need more. And if we take water out of, if we have shortages of water, that's going to hurt. It's going to raise the cost of all of our commodities. Energy, I mean, across the gambit, water, touches our lives in so many ways. And I would always support opportunities to create more abundance of water, and creating more storage, unfortunately, doesn't create more water.
Right.
And that's part of the problem with only doing a plan to create more storage. If it doesn't rain, we're not going to get any more water. So at this point, I think with the conversations of climate change and what the impacts are going to be for us long term, and how this current drought situation may not become may not just be a one-time occurrence. This could become the norm for us here.
Right. That's a scary thought, but
it is absolutely a scary thought. But so the conversation then has to become not how can we store more water, it's how can we bring more supply of water into the system.
Right.
And desalination is a good option, I believe, for people, or for our people to invest in. Especially, they're working on projects currently in Southern California to bring some desal plants online. We see the state of Texas has a tremendous infrastructure supporting desalination, and I would absolutely
support that.
Support ways to create more water for people.
Okay, let's talk about a different topic. Water is certainly used in, and that's forest fires.
Yes.
We've had a rash of forest fires this year, and it's nothing new. We've had them the last several years, possibly exacerbated by the drought.
Yeah.
What do we need to do different in forest management to really not have these fires year in, year out, that we have to spend terrific resources in just to fight?
Yeah. That's an issue that really, I think, touches a lot of people in my district, because as I'm out in the communities talking with various people, I actually get an opportunity to meet a lot of people that work in the timber industry or in the forestry industry, loggers, truck drivers, and these guys all want to work. These guys are serious about wanting to work, and I see a situation right now that we have, we failed to manage our forests appropriately. We've let them become overgrown. We've failed to manage the undergrowth. And I say we put our forest workers back to work. I say we create a way to allow them to, take pride of ownership in our forests. These are owned by us, the people. Why can't we, the people, have the option or the opportunity, to begin to manage our resources and take that pride of ownership and be responsible for management of the forest, and instead of paying a big company to manage it for us, and let's get our people involved. We have the resources, we have the experience, we have the knowledge already here, and yes, it would require a shift in our thinking a little bit about how we do things, but we have the infrastructure and the management in place already in city and local government, and even national U.S. Forest Service also assists in managing forests here in California. So we have the management infrastructure. Now we just need people to go and do the heavy lifting, the actual clearing of the brush, and if there's thinning that needs to take place, then we have conversations about that. But clear cutting is probably not in anyone's interest, but we can responsibly manage our forests, prevent forest fires from becoming major catastrophes for us, and put our people back to work. That's the number one thing. Let's get our guys jobs.
Well, talking about getting our guys jobs, that brings up the other problem we have. What do you see as the future for the economy in Assembly District 6? For our viewers, Assembly District 6, we're talking about the western part of Placer County, the eastern part of Sacramento County, and the western part of El Dorado County. Right. Okay. What do you see as the future for this Assembly District in the way of the economy, jobs? Do we need more businesses, more jobs in this area? And how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more rural areas are the hardest hit by the economic situation that we have right now. This area is one that's seen a lot of businesses leave, for whatever reason, and it's important that we open the conversation up to, how are we going to attract new businesses? What new markets are we going to create here for this district? And not only that, but how are we going to use our resources that we have here? We actually have a great infrastructure to support business here.
Like what?
We have one of the largest train stations here in Roseville on the West Coast. We have local airports. We have some good things on our side that I believe we can put to use for us here.
So what is it that needs to be done? What would you do to bring those big businesses back to California and make this a more attractive place to locate those businesses?
Yeah, I really been thinking a lot about this, Jack, because I think I realize that we create the market. So we choose what is going to succeed and what's not going to succeed, what the direction that the market is going to take. And right now in California, we have an opportunity in front of us to advance our technology when it comes to energy and clean energy. That to me is the next way of the future, and that's a focus that we can have here in Assembly District 6. We have in my district in Lincoln, California, a NEV compliant city. We in Lincoln, they are doing their part to promote clean vehicles, and in District 6 we can continue to build on that concept. We continue to explore new ways to create opportunities for businesses to thrive here in California. And why not create a market where we can work on addressing our issues of climate change and air pollution and air quality, and at the same time we can also create a job market and create good middle class paying jobs and not just retail sector jobs.
But does the state of California need to do more in the area of providing incentives for businesses to be in California?
I think so. I think so. I think that competition has, and it's not just California, this is really nationwide, and you might even say worldwide. There,
Basically, we're in competition with all the other states, and
sure, we're not only in competition with the other states, but the status quo wants to make sure that they maintain the control that they have.
Mhm.
So when you go down and want to sign up for someone to provide your energy here in California, you only have one option. You
Right.
call up PG&E, or if you live in Southern California, San Diego Gas and Electric, or Sempra Energy. We don't have real competition in many markets here in California, and we could open up those doors. I lived in Austin, Texas for about 8 months a few years ago, and they have a truly deregulated electricity market. And I admit, trying to sort through 100 companies wanting to sell me energy and trying to find the best deal, it was a different experience for me
Takes some
coming.
work.
Yeah, it took a little bit of extra work, but I felt that I had, an option, and that I could really choose what was going to be the best package for me, or who had the best service, or who had the best prices. Right now, that's not true in California. You got one choice and one choice only, and thank goodness for places like Roseville and other communities who have taken on a challenge of creating their own infrastructure to support the needs for power of their residents, getting off of the big business of energy, and going back to a concept that we pay our taxes, we pay our local taxes and city taxes and state taxes or property taxes to build up our communities. Why not use those resources to benefit the people, lower the cost of everything for the people?
Very good. Are there other things that you would like to talk to our viewers about? What's really important to you in the future?
Well, there are many issues facing us, Jack. We've touched on a few really good ones here today, and there's many other issues out there. We have questions of labeling of our foods. We have questions of where the jobs are going to come from. We have questions of how we're going to honor our commitments to our seniors, honor our commitments to our veterans, honor our commitments to our teachers, honor a lot of the commitments that we made here to our society, and
Where can
where
viewers go to find out more about your views on some of these other issues?
You can go on my website. It is briancaplesassembly.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter. I have an email address, brian@briancaplesassembly.com. I want to have an open door policy with my voters. I get numerous emails and phone calls on a daily basis, which I do my darndest to respond to, and believe me, if you've ever contacted me, you will get a response from me. So I would encourage all the viewers here to raise their concerns, to raise my awareness, to raise all of our awareness to the issues that you feel are most important and that you want me to focus on when I become your next assemblyman here in District 6.
Very good. Thank you very much for being with us today,
Thank you,
Mr.
Jay.
Caples, and best of luck to you in your election.
I appreciate it.
And to all of our viewers, thank you for joining us today. And until next time, good night.